data that is going across the internet or going through the air, essentially, is not accessible to the average person. So you need to make sure the encryption is turned on, and that's the first step. There's
Jennifer,
different types of encryption. Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, one thing, because it actually arrived in the mail today, but there's a brand new book out, Encryption Made Simple for Lawyers, came out from the ABA Law Practice Division. It's just been released by David Reese, Sharon Nelson, and John Simic. And it's a very nice, very readable book that talks about how and why lawyers should use encryption, but without any sort of technical jargon. And the authors are about probably three of the premier experts on security you'll ever read.
Yeah, they're all really good. Both Dan and I know them both personally and professionally. So a book like that could be very helpful, and I commend it to you. It's probably sitting in my mail when I get home. It'll probably be there. So one thing you need to understand is if you're working with an older router, if you bought your router 5-10 years ago, it's time to buy a new one because the standards of security have changed. In the old days, there was something called WEP. You can hack that in 3 seconds. So if you're using a router that's still connecting through WEP, time to get rid of it. The minimum standard is called WPA, and now we're moving towards WPA2. You may not have that. It's not necessary that you have it, but if you do, you should use it. So those are the types of security. Again, WEP, as it's called, WEP, not okay, no excuse. Go buy a new router by the time you get home. There's something called the SSID. This is the phrase you type in so you can connect to your router. It's essentially the password. You want to make sure it has a good password. It should have a mixture of uppercase, lowercase, letters, and numbers. How do you get it? You can log into your router. The way you log into your router is you need to look up something called your IP address for the router. You may know that an IP address is essentially the phone number for your website. So if my law firm is lowenthalAbrams.com, there's actually an underlying number that I can use to access that. That's the IP address. Well, your router has an IP address too. And if you don't know what that number is, you can just look up your router online. Go to Google. If you have a Verizon router, type in Verizon router IP address, and it'll tell you what it is. And you type that IP address into your computer that's connected to the Internet, and it'll show you your router. And then you can log into that router, and you can make any number of the changes that I'm recommending here. So one thing is you want to make sure your router has a good password, and if it doesn't, you need to change it. The other thing is you want to make sure the name doesn't make it clear what kind of router you have.